Yo, what's up, bro? How you doing?
I'm doing quite well. How are you doing?
Pretty good, all things considered, man. It's good to see you, even if it's virtually, you know.
Good to see you. This would have been the time of the year, like from the summer, where you would have been in New York a lot. I'm
Yeah,
sure. We
definitely.
had yeah, we had some good times last year.
Yeah, last year was dope. I feel like I feel like every day I was at one of the events or something going on, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like last year was kind of like was as you've been building what you've been doing, but like
Yeah,
last year was kind of pivotal in you kind of just like physically stepping out and being more in the
yeah,
places, doing
definitely,
more shows.
definitely. I think yeah, just just being in the physical spaces and meeting people and yeah, like performing and all that stuff, super important part. So that was happening last year, and that was supposed to be even more this year, but things go as they go, so we'll continue when we can.
I mean, because one of the things I wanted to ask you about is because as an artist, a young artist who's coming up now, um, the kind of trajectory and path that you're taking is very different. 15 years ago, someone in your position would have been doing a lot of stage shows and just would have been out in the streets more.
Yep.
You seem to have been quietly for many, many, many years, kind of working on music and perfecting your craft to arrive at this sound that you've got now.
Yeah, I think back in the day, music was like rooted in performance first a lot of the times, and like recording second. Because I think that's just the way that the industry was structured. Like back in the day, if you had a band, like you had to be able to play live really well before people would give you a record deal to record or whatever. And even in dancehall and reggae, like it was like the stage show culture and like the clash culture and the party culture that even started the music, and then it was recorded later. But for me, I think I really because I think I really got into production before I got into the artist side of things. I was naturally focused on more the music and the creation side of it. So it was really through the love of the creation that I ended up learning to love like the performance and the live aspects of everything.
I mean, that's interesting because the creation part of it is a really solitary, kind of solo thing that you can kind of
Yeah,
undertake,
hundred
and
percent.
and you're not having that part of sharing it with people in the world and engaging it. What made you want to even be a vocalist as a part of your production as well?
I think it was. I really didn't want to do vocals at first. It was kind of like a natural progression. Um, I think my music started as very like electronic, very heavy, and as it got more and more, down tempo and musical, it's like it the, it was less like electronic tracks and more beats. I'm like, yo, these need vocals to complement it. I had ideas, and I worked with some people, but sometimes like same thing I said about the solitaire, like I was very much into just like doing things myself. I still am. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna put the vocals I think this track needs on the track. I just started doing it.
But because also I can imagine like it's hard if you seem like um you have a pretty clear vision and you're pretty focused in your music making and your vocals, so to be making music, and I would imagine you ran into situations where you're giving this music to people but you're not that what they're doing isn't good, but you're not getting back what you're imagining, like the finished product. it, it's
Yeah,
it, it's a weird collaboration.
no, definitely, definitely. And I think there's kind of a I definitely have a few people that from early on, like we had like a mutual understanding. So for example, like Toby Lou, so one of the first people I produced for consistently. And the thing with Toby it was a lot of just like I would give him something, he would vibe with it, or if he had a little bit of something he wanted to change, he would know, but he wouldn't change the essence of it. Whereas for a lot of other people, it wasn't even really them not giving me back what I wanted to hear. It's just that they didn't know what to do with the beats in the first place because they're so different, and I wasn't willing to compromise on the beats either. So a lot of people didn't record over stuff. So it's like, all right, I'm gonna do it myself.
So you weren't into the yo make me something that sounds like.
No, never. That definitely that's like never in my life. You get me? Yeah.
Not. and it's interesting moving from, you know, like the more electronic stuff, which naturally tends to be less vocally and
Yeah,
more dubbed out, into, you know, this clear progression into very R&B, what sounds very R&B
yeah,
influence,
100%,
um,
100%.
to me. So like, what's your like? It's a, I mean, this is kind of a catch-22, but like, do
Yeah.
you have a way that you describe, you know, like a shorthand that you use to describe the sound that of the music that you make?
I don't have like a shorthand per se because I feel like it's hard to encompass everything in a way that people would like understand it instantly. So I really just refer to it as like a fusion, you know, like a Caribbean fusion or dancehall fusion. But it definitely has a root. All these songs have the root in like, you know, the Jamaican music, but there's influences from all these other places at the same time.
No, I mean, it's really interesting because, you know, you don't have, you know, a huge catalog of music.
No,
And I know it's all like all of a sudden now it's ramping up and you have
yes,
an EP coming
exactly.
out. But everything, like you said, is very rooted in dancehall and Jamaican music.
Yeah,
But to me, also, it sounds really unique, and it is something very new, and not just that sort of like, and not just dancehall in 2020.
hmm
It's a, like, can you describe kind of the other, we talked about R&B and obviously like dancehall, but like sort of
yeah.
how you even arrived at this sound?
I think same thing. It's like it's just very natural. Like I think almost everything in my career was just like so far has just been an organic you know, transition of what I feel like I want to do and what I'm inspired by. So, you know, I grew up in Jamaica. I'm influenced by all the Jamaican music, all the dancehall reggae that I'm hearing all around me. But at the same time, I have a lot of different musical interests outside. You know, just from like the internet and thing, just listen to a whole heap of hip hop, listen to R&B, listen to some jazz. Like, well, I started listening to jazz a little bit later on. Listen to like some rock, listen to some metal. So it's like all these influences are there in my brain and in my subconscious. So it's like when I'm coming to make a song, it's like I'm not necessarily specifically being like, okay, I want this jazz element and like, you know, this hip hop element and these dancehall drums. It's more just like I'm coming up with ideas, and the ideas just happen to be coming from different places, just because that's what my brain is like putting together based off of what I'm used to hearing.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a synthesis of those things. And so coming up, when you came up and you had, you know, you entered into music with full access in Jamaica, with full access to the internet, which is
Yeah,
something that, you know, people didn't have before. And what you were talking about of people's route to music used to be stage show and live performance.
mm-hmm.
So there was that, because you had to physically do it in front of people. But also
Yeah,
the second part of that is, there was much less external influence,
that's
uh,
fact.
of music. So I feel like you and your peers are definitely like on the front end, kind of cutting edge of Jamaican musicians that have had a really broad influence. So like you talked, so I just want to kind of run them down the line. So like you talked about
Okay.
rap. I'm curious to know what rap music was influencing you at that point.
Well, I mean, there's so much. Well, okay, like I can tell you from like a much earlier age, right? Like growing up, like I definitely listened to like whole heap of Soldier Boy and 50 and Snoop Dogg and them man there, right? So it's like or like Akon, right? So like in the early days, it's that. Um, and then I think like in the later era, like okay, so I remember like early high school days, so like probably like eighth, ninth grade, I was more into like the upcoming wave of rappers. You get me? So like man like Mac Miller and like Wiz Khalifa, right? Like Odd Future, before they were like really like out there, like when they were like, you know, they were on the come up and they were
Internet,
underground and
when the internet connected everyone, that was where
yeah,
people
when the
were.
internet exactly when the internet connected everyone, and so me and my friends were definitely on that kind of slight counterculture wave of, you know, the next up. And so those were really the influences, and same thing with those influences, they were just very they were different, you know, and they were different from also a lot of other things that were going on or the mainstream in Jamaica. Maybe in the US, that might have been like what everybody was listening to at that age. But in Jamaica, you know, we had a little vibe that was kind of different than what everyone else was listening to. And we got really into like classic rock and the Beatles and stuff like that. And we were listening to those vibes. So it's hard to even pin down like one specific era where, like, for example, I know that my brother Zach Jones, right? Like you could pin it down to like, yo, early 2000s hip hop is like his like one of his biggest influences, right? And he knows that that's what he loves the most. Whereas for me, I can't even say that I'm like a hardcore fan of like a specific era in any genre. Honestly, it's just like I pick and choose like things from all over.
Well, I think that really reflects in the music that you make, that it's such a amalgamation of this wide variety of things. Like even like I was saying earlier with dancehall, like it's not a direct descendant in any common way of dancehall or of any of the hip hop or of any of that R&B. Like I feel like what you've done, and maybe this is the reason why you know, it's kind of been effortless, kind of some of the success you're seeing and people have connected to it. Is that it's very unique, and also, like, to me as a listener, feels natural, like what you were saying.
Yeah.
uh, not like um not like someone who grew up in Jamaica and now is making rap or is making R&B. um you know, and I feel like there's kind of a world of people that are kind of coming up, your peers with this same influence, and I feel like the fact that that world exists kind of helps elevate everyone, and that there's some kind of support around the thing.
100%. I think on a couple levels, like you hit the nail on the head there, because the musicians that I'm coming up with, right? Even if they're not, everyone has their own blend of influences, but we all have similar experience. So all of us grew up on the internet, right? All of us grew up listening to all different type of things, right? And then similarly, the the actual listeners have a similar experience too. So they haven't grown up, you know, being focused on one genre. They've been grown up with like a world music mindset. So when they're hearing these new sounds that are like a blend of all these other sounds, it's not really that crazy to them, because they're like, oh, well, I listen to this, and this separately. This is just all them together.
Together and blended, kind of like with the perfect recipe, like the exact kind of right recipe. And so
Yeah,
what you just described is the exact feeling and thought that I had when I heard Pine and Ginger. That
yeah,
was like at the point that came out, there were a lot of things that were, you know, Major Lazer had blown up. So there were a lot of things trying to be like Major Lazer. And there were
yeah,
a lot of things using dance hall people. So a lot of people followed that template, or their version of that template.
100%.
And I remember thinking when I heard Pine and Ginger that I was like, oh wow. And I knew nothing about who you or any of the people on the record were, where anybody came from, that whether it was a Jamaican, wholly Jamaican record or not, just that it completely captured like that moment and all of the things that were going on in music, and delivered it in just a way that just like felt so right and so natural.
Facts. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I know it's funny. It's funny because I actually did. I definitely started off music wanting to be like Major Lazer. You get me? Like, like when I just started, I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna be the next Major Lazer. I'm gonna make like some like EDM like dancehall stuff." But I think even like Major Lazer, like I have to big up them, and like especially big up Washi, um, for being like, you know, the Jamaican in that. But it's just like I I think, as you know, as a young Jamaican, seeing, you know, our music put on a world stage in a way that was different. Cause, you know, in like naturally Jamaica is put on in all different ways. You know, you have whole heap of huge artists and legacies. So it's not that Jamaican music can't be big, because we know it can be and we know it is. But to see it put on in a way that's completely different, and say, oh, like, yo, you can have Jamaican electronic music, and yeah, that can be the number one song in the world, right? Or you can have Jamaicans collaborating with pop artists and having that dancehall song while still fusing with other sounds. So it kind of opened up my mind to the possibilities and made me feel like, yo, if I do this, you know, I can do this and be successful doing it, even though I ended up not wanting to do that exactly at the end of the day. It's just a principle, you know?
But yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's like the template, like, you know, and Major Lazer has done it incredibly well, which is why it made that as a thing that people from all over the world and you guys in Jamaica could look at and go, look, guys, this can work. Like something different that is incorporating these influences can work, and it's not just either a Murder She Wrote, a Sean Paul, or you know, or something that's like reggae influenced but is reggaeton. You know, that very much kicked in the door and like and opened up the lane, and so like that when I heard it was I wanted to know like where it came from, and then I learned like you guys were. So was everybody on that record Jamaican or
So,
Jamaican?
so this is just the story of it, right? Um, quick, I give you a quick timeline. So I met Valleys, right, who is not Jamaican at all by any stretch of the imagination, 100% from North Florida, right? Met him through SoundCloud while I was living in Orlando, going to school for audio engineering, right? So we ended up meeting up in Orlando, and certain situations just ended up working out. I ended up needing a roommate shortly after, and he wanted to move to Orlando, so we ended up becoming roommates, right? And from there, you know, he had never really been exposed to reggae or dancehall. I kind of introduced him to that, and we were like, "Yo, let's start up some things." He started up an idea for a kind of dancehall-ish beat, right? But his sound is much more. It's like almost like pop hip hop, like very bubbly, bright. So that's where like Fine Ginger like gets like that bright, like it was very like bright synths and stuff. That's what he loves to.
Yeah, no, it's got. I mean, and that's it's interesting. Not to cut you off, but it's interesting you say that because it had while like being like super authentic, it
Mhm.
definitely has those elements of pop music that
No, definitely.
that work, that catch people's ears, and again, like
Exactly.
it that record proves that that works.
No, exactly. I don't think the two have to be mutually exclusive. You know, like I think you can have like it has that bass line that's like grooving, right? And it has those drums and percussions, but at the same time, it has those like bright pop synths that kind of like draw people in and like can catch somebody's ear on the radio. So it's that. So he had been working with a Mindy, right? The funny thing is he didn't actually know that her parents were Jamaican or she had Jamaican heritage at the time, um, right? So he had showed me this idea and I'd done some stuff to it, and then he said, "Yo, I'm gonna send it to this girl." And I was like, "All right, cool," because the songs I'd done before were like strictly R&B, right? And I mainly grew up in LA, so you know, although she can bring out the accent when she wants to, she doesn't naturally talk with an accent. So then she sent back this idea, right? And he came to me and he was like, "Yo, so this girl sent back this idea. I like it, but I don't know dancehall, so I don't know if it's good." Right? So I was like, "Yo, let me
So,
hear it."
so that brought out the dance. So that brought out the dance hall in her.
Yeah,
And
brought
yeah,
out in her, but he
right,
didn't know. He was like, "Yeah, I don't know if this is good or not." You get me? Um, uh, all right, it was authentic. So he played it for me, and it was way different because it was kind of like it started with the chorus as it is. Um, it went into like a super long kind of like verse section, and then the whole beat. We had a bunch of other stuff in the beat before, like it changed into like a trap beat and then like some electronic stuff and whatever. And I was like, "Yo, this has some strong potential still." Um, so I asked him to send me the stuff. So like I rearranged the beats and like structured it like how it is now. And did my verse and took a piece of her verse and put that into what became the second verse and added more, and then sent back, and then we just had a little bit of like going back and forth, and there was a lot of deliberation over this like arrangements and like random different stuff. But I was like, "Yo, trust me on the arrangement, like this, please." You get me? Um, and then it ended up just coming together, but it was crazy because like when I heard it, I was like, "Yo, this girl is actually, you know, Jamaican. She has to be at least part Jamaican because there's no way she would nail it like that. And you know, she was, but Mindy, like even before the song, she never even been to Jamaica, right?
Oh wow, so she was so Jamaican
Yeah,
heritage, but born
yeah.
and
She's
raised.
born and raised in LA, right? She never been to Jamaica. And we didn't even meet her until after the song came out.
That's one of the things that's so crazy about like I know you, but you know,
Yeah,
before that you were putting music up on SoundCloud, and I know that, you know, your hope for Pine and Ginger was to do the best numbers you had done on SoundCloud, which to that
definitely.
at that point was 30,000 plays.
Yeah,
Um,
about that. About
but
that.
but so the fact of being able to make music like that, and not even having physically met all of the people, and you
No,
guys
yeah,
have worked together like that.
it's crazy. And I think SoundCloud is very, very important in this whole story, and also just to where the music industry is today with all those future thinking songs. Because I think SoundCloud was like an environment where a lot of producers, especially, felt very comfortable to share things and also, you know, get inspiration from each other. And it's like a very friendly competition where it's like, yeah, everyone's trying to make a better song or do something crazy or do something that no one has thought of or make a different type of synth or a different chord progression. And I think that's what fostered a lot of the innovation in the industry nowadays. So even like when it comes to hip hop and like that kind of like that whole like trap soul sound that came from like Bryson Tiller, that's like a lot of like SoundCloud producers and like all the people that came after that with this whole like new wave R&B, you know, lots of SoundCloud producers, and the same thing even like with Austin, it's like this dancehall offshoot. Like I met Vice through SoundCloud, he met Mindy through SoundCloud, right? Um, so it's already just that
No,
online connection.
it's amazing because, you know, because there's the ability. It's not just a one-way delivery system for music. There's the
No,
ability to communicate, and like SoundCloud really was the first kind of really effective way to do that. Whereas even, you know, even now, like things like a Spotify and Apple Music um, are delivering music to you, but there's not
yes,
the
there's not
interaction.
exactly. That's the thing. I think with SoundCloud, the greatest thing about SoundCloud is that it gave the power to the artists and the consumers. You get me? Because the thing is, at the end of the day, like even how Pine Ginger got its original start, um, you know, we posted it up on this page, Film Noir, which was made by some other Jamaicans, um, and they had built up a following for themselves, right? Like 50,000 followers, I think, at the time. So that was a platform, and that platform was built up completely organically. Yet to the point they had built it up, any basically any song that was posted on that page, right, was guaranteed to get like at least like, you know, maybe like 50, 60,000 plays in the first couple of days because they had built up their page to the point where it was like, yo, they know that they're putting out solid content, right? Like basically like a mini label. And then other artists now have built up their pages just from their music, and they might have had like a 10,000 followers, or somebody else like I think I had like maybe like 8 9,000. Valleys had 5,000. I mean they had a couple thousand. And there's other friends of ours that will have one. Like somebody might have 20,000, somebody might have 30,000, and all of them who who coming together, we can say, hey, if everybody reposts this, we might have a reach of like 300,000. You get me? So it was really the artists were able to come together and support each other. So if like I know I had a group of friends where it's like anytime one person drop a song, everyone would repost it at a certain time, and it would boost up everything everybody's saying. So same thing, everybody helped to push that song, right? And that allowed it to get that early boost. And then even the people like it. They might only have 100 followers as just their friends, but if they can repost it, if they like it, and we get a whole heap of reposts, all of them add up, and all of a sudden you've gotten the music out to a bunch of people. With the problem is now like with Spotify, which I mean I love Spotify, I love Apple Music, and you know I appreciate the support I get there, but it's still like there's gatekeepers, right? So if you are the dancehall guy at Spotify, and at the end of the day you just don't like my music, I'm not getting on there, right?
And also on top of that, I mean, definitely that falls more into the line of like the old school radio system where there's a program director and there's a gatekeeper. But also, you know, that system is built on, okay, here are the new releases for this week.
Yeah,
We're gonna feature 3 new releases this week. So there's a finite amount of space for new
exactly.
things and for each things and things that go in the categories. Where, as you like you pointed out, SoundCloud is just like it's there for people to do
It's
what they
there.
feel with it.
You know, I think on SoundCloud it was a thing which, I mean, even from the beginning I realized like, hey, if I'm consistent with my releases and stuff, it's just a matter of time before things will build up slowly, right? And that happened. Um, because it's just the people, it's just getting to the people, right? It's you to the people. And I think that's honestly like, I don't really want to get into like, I'm not trying to come with a conspiracy theory per se, right? But I think that's a big part of the reason why SoundCloud is not doing as well as some of the other platforms right now, because the other platforms found a way to, with like playlisting, to hold the power, right? And then by holding that power in their hand, they were able to, you know, like for example, labels want that power. They're holding that power and say, okay, cool, right? It's a way for them to negotiate and to kind of stay afloat by keeping everything to themselves. Where SoundCloud kind of gave it up freely.
SoundCloud
But
is the
then,
social. SoundCloud is the socialism of music distribution
literally,
networks.
literally, it's the socialism. They gave it up freely, but then the problem is, like for example, labels who want to be able to say, hey, you know, if you're a big label, a lot of money, you want to be able to say, I am, my artist is dropping, put me on all your biggest playlists, right? On SoundCloud, when the biggest playlists are not owned by the company, but they're just, you know, the biggest artists, and especially when those artists are, they don't need your money to do things. They're making money themselves, and also they are very passionate about their curation and passionate about putting on people that they know and their friends. You know, maybe only half of them might say yes to that, and it's not as simple as saying do this and it's done. So the labels and stuff didn't, I didn't like that because they didn't have a way to really monetize that platform. So they put their money and their support elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, do you find yourself still interacting on SoundCloud and being active there?
Not really. I mean, I'm still active in terms like I try to respond to some messages and I still post my songs there. But back in the day, like I don't even know how to describe it, but it was like a thriving community, right? So like same thing, like my friends from SoundCloud, like a lot of them became my friends in real life and friends I still have. Um, and it was just something like every day I was like on SoundCloud. And if I was on SoundCloud, I was in a group chat with some producers from SoundCloud, some artists from SoundCloud, and like you could see like, oh, these people link up together and these people collab and these people have this collective together, and oh, this collective, and there was Soul Election was a big part of it too, where it's like, oh, like this got featured on Soul Election and that opened up to a bunch of other people. And you know, you had the sub scene, so you had the guys that were more electronic and you had the guys that were more R&B and you had the guys that were, you know, like doing like the dancehall and African stuff. So it was like a living, breathing community. Whereas now I feel like it's still there as a platform, but at least for the type of music I was making, I no longer really see that community, or maybe I'm just not a part of it.
What so moving out, so that's one really interesting kind of like piece of the puzzle that
Yeah.
is the first place that most people heard of you. It's definitely the first place that I had heard of you.
Yeah.
There was a huge video premiere on High Snobiety and all of that.
Yes.
And then, but then also you've moved on to I Learned Some Jazz Today, which is the
Mhm.
song featured in the Apple AirPods commercial. So again, for someone who's does not have a huge catalog of music, that's another piece of music that just seemed really in a very different kind of reception and way, but just really connected naturally with how that placement occurred, right?
Yeah. So yeah, so that placement too, it's like a very I feel like organic thing that, you know, I didn't even for that I didn't pitch for it. You get me? No one was pitching for me for it. I wasn't reaching out to people. It was just that, as it was told to me, the music supervisor followed me on SoundCloud and just had my music in their playlist. So they were doing this ad, pitching it, and they said, yo, they think my sound might be the right sound, and they shortlisted a couple of my songs, and that ended up being the one that made it. But like that whole experience, interesting enough, the same thing, that song had been out for 3 years before and hadn't really done that much. It was just kind of sitting down.
And there's no and that was released straight by you, no
Straight
label, or so just.
independent. I mean, when I dropped that song, I didn't even have it on Spotify or anything. It was just on SoundCloud, right?
Well, that's interesting then, that that a music supervisor who's putting together music for huge projects like that was also very tuned into SoundCloud and not just Spotify and what's doing the biggest numbers on
Definitely.
on those larger platforms.
Because I think anybody who really like had their ear to the ground over the last like 5 years or so would have been like properly tapped into like the SoundCloud community. And also I think in terms of a business standpoint, to me it'd be smarter to find somebody who's like a really good sound that's more upcoming than find the next person who's popping off, because they probably are just gonna ask for way more money. Yeah.
It's an earlier kind of phase of development of like kind of usually where people have reached in the music industry, and there's probably less lawyers, less managers, less labels to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think, I mean, and also what they personally told me when I was working with them, it's a really, really cool team, it's a small team who really organizes everything. And they said that, like, to be honest, for example, if they gave a Drake or somebody a feature, it's like, cool, you collect the money, and like it won't change anything for him. You get me? Like the next day is like another day. It's just like a little, oh cool, I got an extra check, I'll buy another car. Whereas like for an upcoming artist, it can really do a lot. So they actually have been preferring to find like new artists or artists they believe in, or people that they want to give more exposure, because then they can use their platform almost like A&Rs in a sense, where it can help to change somebody's career
Right,
positively.
right. And they are, and we keep talking about Spotify, but Apple also is their own streaming
They are their own
music
streaming
business.
service,
So I think it's in that way, it's also beneficial to them to try to like find new things and upstream things in a way that people do feel good about the platform, feel like a loyalty to it. And it seemed like also, and I don't know if this was coming, you can tell me, I don't know if this was coming from you or from them, but it just seemed like with that that commercial project, there was a lot of public and media awareness of the song, of it being your. I don't know if this is just because by that point I know you, and I'm
Yeah.
seeing it, but so I know some of it is that. But I feel
Yeah.
like beyond that, or maybe it's as a result of what you had done and kind of what Pine and Ginger had done before. But it seemed like there was a good amount of awareness of that being your piece of music and featured and highlighted in more than just a way of people hearing it and being like, oh, cool, that's a nice sounding commercial. It
Yeah.
seems to, again, like with the actual music itself, kind of like all come together in a pretty beneficial way.
Yeah, I think that was on multiple levels. I think part of that is even down to the creation, right? Because the ad wasn't an ad where they had an ad and they're placing some music for it, right? They were looking for a song to build an ad around. So
Oh,
they
really? They so the rest of the creative of the ad followed the music.
Yeah. So they shot those scenes to that song specifically, right? So I think it was more like more of an audiovisual project as a whole rather than just like a song in the background. I think also just because it was an AirPods ad, I think that helped more with the music. rather than if it was just like an iPhone ad, because it's very focused on like, you know, what like what was going on sonically, right? Um, and then and after that, I mean, I'm not sure. I think those things helped just bring awareness to it. And even with the song themselves, they pushed me to, because you know the song that's in the ad is a revamped version. It's a re-recorded and reproduced, and they actually pushed me to go more left field with it, and to, you know, add more trumpets, and you know, the more switch ups to the arrangement, or the more harmonies as I wanted, because they wanted it to be very like striking and like very memorable. So
And
I think that also had a role to play.
so like, is that rewarding to you as someone who's a musician, is multi-instrumentalist, to know that that kind of like experimentation and it is actually rewarded? Because a lot of times making music, people are kind of more constrained. Like the general feedback, again,
Yeah,
like labels and people who are making playlists, things tend to want to be constrained into more defined.
100%. I didn't expect that at all, to be honest. You know, I was expecting to say, okay, we need this, and this. And I fully understand that because they need what they need, but they didn't actually give me any specific, like say, oh, we need this or this. They just basically said, hey, we like what you're doing. Just like take it to the max, and like don't worry about like finding the balance or whatever, because like we want like a cinematic. You know, we want those moments. We want those things. So like just create, and it was really nice to just have some people believe in the vision, to just say, okay, do what you're doing, and we're gonna take it from there. So I think that had a big role to play, because even out of all my songs, it's one of them that's like very out there, you know. Even in terms of the sounds, and it's very like cinematic. Same thing, has a lot of like very grandiose moments with trumpet solo and this and that. Um, But I think that's what it comes down to. Like when you're somebody that's that powerful as an organization, they're not worried about whether or not people are gonna like it, because they know that like, okay, if we put this to the people, they're going to like it, no matter
You
what
know,
it is.
no, that's the mafia shit. We tell you what to like.
Exactly. We tell you what to like, so they're like, yo, don't worry, if people are gonna like it. People are going to like it. Just do make it sound the best.
Definitely that. But again, it just they heard it and gave you that's like a crucial piece of direction without being direction, to say just like, yo, let
Exactly.
loose. But also like what you had started with and ended up with, um, is again very unique and natural. And I think, like, I mean, that's kind of the correlation and the theme that I'm drawing, is that like that like genuine creativity. I think people connect to it. I think this is evidence that people connect to it. And like, you know, from knowing you now, but you know, not knowing about you prior to hearing Pine and Ginger,
Yeah.
is like people seem to have rocked with you and followed you, kind of on this interesting journey that's not even chronological, because
Yeah.
I Learned Some Jazz is a song from 3 years ago, and Pine and Ginger was a couple of years out in the world um, before it really caught fire, and you guys did the video, right?
Not. It was. Well,
How
I think
long?
we did a video about. Uh, we did the video relatively soon, but it took some time to drop. So the video dropped like probably like 10 months or so after the original song or song
Okay.
originally dropped.
So the reason I say that, so all I know is,
Yeah.
the first time I heard it was the video.
Okay.
Yeah, I see. Oh, there's all this push around there, big premiere, and I kind of felt like I was like, well, I'm pretty deep in Jamaican music. I was like, why
Yeah.
didn't I know about this? This is what is
Right.
this that I don't know anything about? I
Yeah.
kind of had that. I was like, all right, let me see what's going on with this, because you know, in being a DJ and a producer and all the other things I do, I'm obviously trying to keep up on music. So
Yeah.
it was
100%.
interesting. So I remember seeing the video and I was like, wow, this is dope. And then searching for the song. And then some months later, big up Stammer, because
Stammer is my G. That's yo, Stammer. Real quick tangent. The first time I ever performed, the first two times I ever performed one as a DJ, which is like in 2014, and my first performance as like a vocalist, which was like in 2017 summer. Both of those were organized by Stammer.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this makes sense. So big up Stammer, who is the G and the link for all things. And so Stammer always keep, you know, we're always in touch, and it's been for years. And so periodically I'll be like, yo, just send me some new things that you think I might be missing. So fast forward, see this video, I find the song. Him and I are talking about it, and I was like, yo, tell me about this. And he told me you had performed and various things, and he was like, I'm pretty sure I sent that to you. And I go look, and I look at the original date that I had it in my computer from, and I'm thinking a year, but I guess it was in that like 9 or 10 months range.
Yeah.
I had in a folder of kind of like the really new up and coming outside of the left of center, not
Yeah.
dancehall stuff. And sure enough, it was in there from then. So it was one of those that I was like, oh man, I was like, how did I miss this? How did I miss it? So just so seeing that kind of take that journey.
Yeah.
I learned some jazz, take that journey,
Facts.
and now you're gearing up for an EP, right?
Yes. So I dropped the first two singles so far. I dropped No Answer, which is featuring Crayon, dope artist from Nigeria, and I dropped Me and My Lady last week. So the EP is coming in a few weeks, and that's gonna be like seven tracks in total, 4 new ones.
Yeah, no, so it's interesting. So all of a sudden in 2 months, we've got like the catalog is almost like doubled. Aside from like
Yeah, pretty much doubled straight up.
aside from early SoundCloud stuff. So that's why I was like, all right, this is interesting that now there's you know, heavy gear up. So also No Answer, there's a video for it, which is billed as a lyric video, but it's not a lyric video in the traditional sense.
Yeah, it's not a lyric video.
Lyric
It's
visualizer.
it's like a 50-50. It's a 50-50. Yeah. So it's not a full music video. But it's a bit more than a lyric video. I have it as a lyric visualizer. Cause it's kind of just like a mood. It's kind of like a mood of a song. So it's me performing the song, and it's bringing that energy and like some really nice things to look at. But it's not too many scenes or anything. It's really just like one scene, and it's like it's almost like a moving cover art is what I would look at it like, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, and that visualizer brings me to another one of my points, which is like visually, in the look and style of you yourself, but also of like how you're presenting the music, you're moving into you know, a new direction and a new phase of I think what music that is rooted in Jamaica can look like, beyond just what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Where I mean, where is the drive for that? Is it intentional? Is it just natural? Not that it would be natural, but
yeah, I mean, you know, I think my love, I have a very strong love for aesthetics, and I'm very picky about them. You get me? About things that about how things look, especially when it comes to art. So, you know, I think that all the projects are really, you know, the visuals are a part of it, just as music is a part of it. It's not like the visuals are just there as like a promotional tool for the music, right? And I think also even how the visuals are presented can change people's view of the music, and can change the mood, right? So I think the more in depth and the more effort that's put into the visuals is just the better people are going to be able to understand the message and the feeling that I'm trying to put out to the music. So yeah, I really love working on the visuals and all that. And yeah, same thing. It is organic. It's really just me doing things that I like, and really, you know, working with people that I appreciate too, and whose art I appreciate. Just get some really beautiful things that I feel like represents my music in the best way. Because if I need a visual, that's like people are gonna see this every time they listen to my music, whether it's a video or whether it's just a cover art. It's like I want something where I'm like, if I look at that, I'm like, yeah, if that's my song in visual form, I can live with that. Like I don't want some slapdash kind of weird thing, which is one of my biggest gripes with dancehall nowadays. It's like, yo, the artwork is whack. Like I'm straight up, the artwork is terrible, and like I'm not apologizing to anybody.
It's interesting because it comes from a place of, so it comes from a place, you know, going back historically,
Mm.
of there being a lot of slapdashery and that, but also this part of that being like you get Lemonius and all of this hand drawn stuff
Yeah, but
that
those
be
stuff are dope.
that
Lemonius is amazing.
right, but that becomes this like incredible aesthetic that
Hmm.
for a long time people just kind of disregarded. It was just it was seen as unimportant. So now we're coming back to a place where you
Yeah.
recognize that, and people more and more recognize that. And then having got into like, you know, digital graphic design,
Hmm.
where just like music production, which we won't get into that whole conversation of, like, it democratizes it, which is great, but it also means there's a lot more bad stuff out
No,
there.
there is. There's a lot. I think there's a lot more good stuff, and there's also a lot more bad stuff. Just because there's so much more in general across the board. And yeah, that's the thing. I think that's the thing. It gives everybody the ability to do something, right? But um, yeah, I think it just comes down to a lot of people not realizing, because there is so much talent. You get me? And just like creativity and amazing hardworking artists in Jamaica. And I've seen things from them that just blow my mind, right? But I think a lot of people just don't think things are important. And also, I think from seeing so much, I don't want to say bad, but the seeing like so much like low quality or like low effort work, it's like their palette is built up on that. So when they see something that's low effort, they're just like, oh yeah, that's great.
It's just standard. So
It's like that's
the
what it is.
bar.
Yeah, that's what they see as the standard. And even I think even a lot of like my artworks and thing, I'm sure that a lot of people don't get it. Right? They're like, yo, I definitely had somebody like a Jamaican, someone in the Jamaican industry come and be like, yo, um, cause the Pine and Ginger, right? Pine and Ginger cover, which was drawn by my friend Solus, who's amazing Jamaican artist. Which I feel like represented the mood of the song very well and just the whole feeling of it, like what we're trying to do with the song. And somebody came to me and was like, yo, you need to change out that cover and just have a picture of you and a Mindy, because nobody don't want to see like a pineapple. It's like the level of thinking about it, it's like it's so minimal, right?
I think people are programmed into that, and the bar is very low. But you guys, you're doing great, interesting stuff with art. I think Protege is really pushing.
100%. I
Um,
think he was one of the first. He was one of the first in recent times to really like tap in with the art. I mean, even I remember his first set of projects. He had Tash Francis doing all the artworks.
from from the beginning, I think it's just gotten even more and more and more refined to where we can now, to beyond just like someone like yourself who's focused on it. People, even if they're not fully understanding it, see that there's an aesthetic, even if you don't
Exactly.
even if you don't
Exactly.
fully understand what that means. But it
They can see it, and I
again,
think
it's just it's part of like it connects, and I think that's
hundred
kind of like
percent, 100%.
part of the thing is just like that, that natural legit connection with people. um so do you guys have a date for the EP yet?
I
No
think
pressure.
we do have a date. I can't remember the exact date right now, but I can tell you it's about like 6 weeks out.
All right, well, the good thing is, again, just like we're talking about, since it's not the old days anymore, you can
Yeah.
announce it 3 days before, and
Yeah.
no one has to make a plan to go to the record store. All
No,
you have to
like
do is have your phone on you.
I could
So
just post it. I could just post it. I'm like, yo, it's out. Yeah,
um,
because honestly, like even what I've come to realize, like even with the last couple of releases, like I think the first one I announced it like 2 weeks before, and I was like, yo, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And the second one I announced it like 2 days before, and it wasn't really that big of a difference in reception. Because honestly, I think sometimes we announce things too early in this day and age where like things are people are used to like instant gratifications, like something is there, something is there, something is there. So like you might want to get it in people's brains, but if they're thinking about it too long, it's too long before. Like between the time when you announced it and dropped it, like 10 other people gave them full albums. So it's
But
like,
there's just, yeah, no, the attention span is very short. But I will mention that Brian Greenspoon just posted that you guys are looking at November 6th for the EP release. So
fuck.
nobody
Brian,
nobody has to
oh
hold
yeah,
us to
Brian,
that.
big up Brian. Yeah.
And I'm sure we can remind them 2 days before.
No, definitely. But the thing is, where I also just look at a lot of things from my own perspective, which is kind of worked because I'm a musician. But I just know like right now, unless somebody is like up there for me, if someone says like yo November 6th right now to me, like I'm not really like putting that in my brain. I'm just like yo at that point down the line, like when it comes out, I know I'll see it.
Also, in the world that we live in, November 6th is like 500 years away from now.
Like you know what's happening? Isn't like the presidential election around that date? Like I don't even know
No,
that's
it's
13th.
November 3rd. So
So
unrelated.
the whole world could be a different. We don't like by that time.
Unrelated to music, where are you living these days?
Right now, it's kind of a weird situation. So I've been living in Los Angeles for the last 3 years. I'm currently at this moment in Jamaica. I've been in Jamaica for a couple months. It's because America is kind of weird right now.
Kind of is an understatement. It's the understatement of the year.
Yeah, and yeah. So I'm in JA right now. I'm honestly not sure what is going on. Everything's kind of up in the air. So
All right. So we only got like a couple minutes left. I want to actually wrap it up before we get cut off because I hate that awkward.
all good. Yeah, all good.
Off.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to ask. There's been a very little bit, but do you have outside production work that you've done for other artists that is also kind of like coming in this upcoming year?
In this upcoming year, I have production work for people. I don't know what is going to be coming out specifically. I mean, I know that, like, for example, Toby Lou, same thing. I told you, like, first artist to produce for. He's doing amazing right now. He just got a gold record. And I have a couple songs with him still to come out.
Oh, nice.
So I think one of those should be coming out soon. I've been working with some different people from JA. Like I've been working with Naomi Cowan on her project, which I'm not sure when that's coming out, but that's gonna be dope when it comes out. And then honestly, there's some like other various things actually with like some people from the UK and things too, that are not fully firmed up. But yeah, I think once I have a lot of different like production and like writing stuff out there, that I kind of just release them when it's not my project.
Right.
And like when people finish up their things, then they finish it up. So I'm really excited to hear all those coming out. I think after I release this project, I'm gonna go into a little bit of like a production mode for a while and just like work on a bunch of people's stuff, just to like do some different things and like free up myself so when I get back in writing mode for myself, I can have some new ideas and new inspiration.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because we've only seen you do like a very, very small handful of outside work. So I was curious as to whether that's like some obviously something that you are into doing.
Yeah,
as well.
I think the thing is like I'm very honestly kind of picky as a person, which is why most of my stuff, I mean, I have a handful of people I work with like on my own projects now, but even most of my stuff are like self-produced. Like I record myself, I do a lot of my mixing myself, just because I have a very specific way I want it to be, and in certain situations, I'm really not willing to compromise. So I'd rather not go and like be in a weird situation. I just end up doing things myself. But then when I do work well with people, or there's a certain project, I'm like, okay, dope, we're gonna do this, and it's gonna be amazing. That's why I feel like
it's a different mindset.
It's a different mindset.
You can move into that mindset.
It's only been like I've honestly really only worked on a few production projects, but I feel like all the ones I've worked on so far have done like really well. So I'm trying to keep that track record like as a producer, where I'm like, yo, I only have 3 songs and all of them have like at least a few million plays. So it's like let me.
Yeah, no. It is as cliche as it gets, but quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity, because like right now, if I'm like, yo, I have 100% track record that every song I produce has been a hit, I'm just gonna wait and be like, all right, I'm gonna find the right things to do. Because then right now, if someone wants to come to me to work, I'm like, yo, look at my production track record. Give me this dollar figure, right? It's
Yeah,
a guarantee.
no pressure. You're trying to drive the rates up, drive the streams up.
Drive everything up. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no weak links.
no weak links.
All right, bro. Well, thank you for the time. It's always a pleasure to talk to
Likewise,
you.
man. It was great. It was
I'm
great to talk.
sorry.
Hopefully, I'll be able to see you in person sometime soon.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry we have not gotten to hang in person. Thank you for the music you've given us all thus far. Looking forward to the new music, and we'll just keep the link.
Bless, bro. Definitely. 100%.
All right, bro. Thank you.
Peace.